Meridian 12, an abandoned research outpost orbiting a shattered moon, was bathed in flickering scarlet light as red dust storms passed below. The station's corridors, once pristine and meticulously maintained, now bore the scars of an ancient conflict, scorch marks from energy weapons, dents from ballistic impacts, and the haunting emptiness that only abandoned spaces could possess. Varia Frost moved silently through the dim passageway, her footfalls barely audible against the metal flooring. Her adaptive blue-tinged armor shifted subtly with each movement, the Dravi technology responding to her body's rhythms. The helmet remained clipped to her hip, revealing braided dark hair that framed a face marked by silver-flecked eyes, a trait distinctive to those born in the outer colonies. Those eyes now scanned the corridor ahead, alert for any sign of movement or danger. The walls around her told stories of violence, scorched panels and blackened metal, remnants of the brutal conflict between Dravi rebels and Terran occupiers decades ago. Silent consoles blinked occasionally, displaying stale readings from systems barely clinging to functionality. The air tasted metallic, recycled countless times through failing purification systems. Varia's mission was clear: infiltrate Meridian 12 to recover the memory prism, a shard of pre-imperial Dravi artifice, rumored to possess the ability to rewrite loyalty. Her orders were equally clear: destroy it, to prevent misuse by any faction. The prism's power was too dangerous to fall into the wrong hands, especially now, in the uneasy peace that had followed the Narthus uprising. As she approached a junction, her enhanced senses detected movement ahead. 5 Terran mercenaries guarded a side hatch, their postures betraying boredom and complacency. They wore standard-issue combat gear adorned with corporate insignias, hired muscle, rather than dedicated soldiers. Their weapons were holstered or held casually, suggesting they weren't expecting trouble. Varia paused, calculating. 5 opponents, standard equipment, no visible augmentations, minimal threat. She moved. The first guard barely registered her presence before her elbow connected with his temple, sending him crumpling to the floor without a sound. The second turned, mouth opening in alarm, but Varia was already pivoting, her leg sweeping his feet from under him. As he fell, her fist struck precisely at the base of his skull. The third guard managed to draw his weapon, but Varia twisted inside his guard, disarming him mid-swing and using his own momentum to drive him face first into the corridor wall. The fourth and fifth reacted more quickly, one raising an alarm communicator to his lips, while the other leveled a pulse rifle at her chest. Varia's movements were fluid, uninterrupted. She closed the distance to the armed guard, deflecting the rifle barrel upward as it discharged, sending energy pulses harmlessly into the ceiling. Her palm struck his sternum with calculated force, enough to incapacitate without killing. The final guard backed away, alarm forgotten as he fumbled for his sidearm. Varia's spinning kick caught him in the side, driving the breath from his lungs and sending him sprawling. 5 men, neutralized in seconds. Varia hadn't even broken stride. She stepped over the unconscious forms, scanning the corridor ahead. This section of Meridian 12 was unfamiliar, not part of the schematics she had memorized. The Terran occupation had modified the original Dravi architecture, creating a labyrinth of passages that defied logical navigation. Varia! The single word echoed from the darkened corridor ahead. And for the first time since entering the station, Varia Frost froze. Her heart, steady through combat just seconds before, suddenly pounded against her ribs. That voice. Impossible. From the shadows stepped a figure she had never expected to see again. Commander Adrian Kell. The human warrior she had believed dead, had left for dead on Kelisar 7. He wore unmarked tactical gear, scarred and worn from use, but carried no visible weapon. His stance was casual, almost relaxed, hands empty at his sides. A long scar traced from his left temple to jaw, new since she had last seen him. The moment he spoke her name, her certainty fractured, her mission parameters, so clear moments before, suddenly blurred at the edges. Adrian Kell should be dead. She had completed that mission herself. "You look surprised to see me," Adrian said, his voice carrying the same calm timbre she remembered. "Did you really think I'd be that easy to kill?" Varia's hand instinctively moved toward the Dravi blade at her hip, but she stopped short of drawing it. "You were meant to be dead." Adrian's lips curved in what might have been a smile, though it didn't reach his eyes. "Sorry to disappoint. Old habits. I suppose, surviving when I shouldn't." "Why are you here?" Varia demanded, her voice colder than she intended. She maintained her distance, body tensed for any sudden movement. "The same reason you are, I imagine." Adrian gestured toward the station's core. "The memory prism. Though I suspect our intentions differ somewhat." "You're working for the Terrans now?" The accusation carried weight between them. A history of shared battles against Terran expansion. Adrian's expression hardened. "You, of all people, don't get to question my loyalty. Not after Kelisar." "I had my orders." "Yes, always the perfect soldier." His words carried a bitterness that made Varia flinch internally, though her expression remained impassive. "And what are your orders now? Destroy the prism? Ensure no one can access what it contains?" Before she could respond, the corridor's ambient lighting flickered, and holographic projections suddenly materialized along the walls. Fragments of Dravi runes, ancient and powerful, cast eerie blue light across their faces. The station's AI was responding to their presence. "Meridian is waking up," Adrian observed. "It senses Dravi blood." The projection intensified, the runes shifting and realigning themselves into patterns Varia recognized from her childhood. Sacred geometries taught only to those deemed worthy of preserving Dravi heritage. The station wasn't just responding, it was welcoming her. "You know the way to the prism chamber," Varia stated, not a question. Adrian nodded. "I've been on Meridian for 3 days. The station's selective about who it allows near its core, but it remembers me from before, from when we were here together." Memories surfaced unbidden. A mission from years ago, before the fracturing of allegiances, before Kelisar 7, when Adrian had still been an ally, a friend, perhaps something more. "We don't have much time," Adrian continued. "The mercenaries were just the first wave. Their employers know the prism is active again. They'll send more." "Why should I trust you?" Varia kept her voice level, professional. Adrian didn't answer immediately. When he did, his words carried the weight of their shared past. "Because despite what happened on Kelisar, I'm still the only human who knows what that prism truly means to your people. And because right now, I'm your best chance of reaching it before a corporate extraction team turns this station into a floating debris field." Varia considered her options. Working alone, navigating an awakening station with unfamiliar modifications. She might still reach the prism, but Adrian's knowledge of the current layout would expedite matters. And if his intentions proved hostile, she was confident in her ability to neutralize him. "Lead," she said finally. "But understand this, if you betray me, I won't leave the job unfinished this time." Adrian's expression was unreadable as he turned and moved deeper into the station. "I never doubted that, Varia." As they progressed through Meridian 12's twisting corridors, the station seemed to respond to their presence. Lights activated ahead of them, illuminating their path, while darkening behind, as if to discourage retreat. The walls themselves occasionally shifted, ancient Dravi technology reconfiguring passageways in patterns that defied Terran architectural modifications. "The station remembers you," Adrian observed as another corridor realigned itself. "It's creating a path." Varia didn't respond, but she recognized the phenomenon. Dravi installations had always possessed a semi-sentience. designed to recognize the genetic signature of authorized personnel. That Meridian still recognized her was troubling. It suggested the station systems were more intact than intelligence had indicated. They passed through what had once been a communal gathering space. Terran occupation had converted it to a monitoring station, but the equipment lay dormant now, covered in a fine layer of dust. Holographic emitters embedded in the ceiling occasionally flickered, projecting fragments of data, snippets of research logs, security footage, encoded transmissions. "Stop!" Vareya commanded suddenly, her attention caught by a projected image. It showed a recording of Dravi researchers working with what appeared to be early prototypes of the memory prism. Adrian halted, watching as she approached the projection. "The Narthus uprising," he said quietly. "Meridian was where it started." "Not just started," Vareya corrected, her voice distant as she studied the image. "This is where they created the means to ensure it could never be forgotten or erased from history." The projection shifted, showing Terran security forces storming the laboratory. The footage ended abruptly and static. "They tried to seize the prism technology," Adrian continued as they resumed their journey. "Your people destroyed most of their research rather than let it fall into Terran hands. But not all of it." "How do you know this?" Vareya asked, suspicion edging her voice. "Because after you left me for dead on Kelisar, I needed answers." Adrian's voice remained neutral, but tension ran beneath the words. "I tracked the data trails, followed the fragments of classified information. All paths led here, to Meridian 12 and the last intact memory prism. They descended a spiral ramp that wound deep into the station's core. The artificial gravity fluctuated slightly, creating momentary sensations of weightlessness before stabilizing again. The walls here were embedded with Dravi glyphs that pulsed with internal light, responding to their presence. "The corporations think the prism is a weapon," Adrian said as they navigated the narrowing passage. "Or at best, valuable technology they can reverse engineer for profit." "And what do you think it is?" Vareya kept her senses alert. The deeper they went, the more active the station became. Automated systems hummed to life, dormant for decades but now stirring. Adrian glanced back at her, his expression serious. "I think it's exactly what your people designed it to be. A repository of unalterable truth. A witness that cannot be corrupted or silenced." Before Vareya could respond, a tremor ran through the station. The lights flickered ominously, and a distant mechanical groan echoed through the structure. "Security drones," Adrian warned, pulling her into a recessed alcove as the sound of approaching mechanisms grew louder. "Meridian's defenses are more active than during my previous incursions." They pressed against the wall as 3 spherical drones zipped past their hiding place, scanner beams sweeping the corridor. The drones paused at an intersection, hovering uncertainly before continuing down an adjacent passage. "They're searching for unauthorized Terran signatures," Adrian explained in a hushed voice. "The station remembers the occupation. It's treating any human presence as hostile." "Then why aren't they targeting you?" Vareya questioned, her suspicion resurfacing. Adrian's eyes met hers in the dim light. "Because years ago, you added my biometric signature to the station's recognition protocols. You never revoked it." The implication hung between them, a remnant of trust from a time before betrayal. Another tremor, stronger than the first, shook the corridor. Dust and small debris rained from the ceiling. "The station's structural integrity is compromised," Vareya observed. "Decades of neglect." "Not just neglect," Adrian corrected. "The prism is active. It's drawing power from Meridian's core systems to maintain itself. The station wasn't designed to sustain that kind of energy drain indefinitely." "Then we need to move quickly." They continued their descent, encountering occasional evidence of Terran mining operations, abandoned equipment, breached bulkheads, where samples had been extracted from the station's Dravi architecture. Each violation of the original structure seemed to provoke a response from the station itself, lights flickering angrily, ventilation systems surging. As they neared the central chamber, they passed a section of corridor lined with banned archive units. Dravi technology designed to store experiential memory. Most had been damaged during the Terran occupation, their crystalline storage matrices cracked or removed entirely. Varia paused before one that remained partially intact, its surface still glowing with faint internal light. She placed her hand against it, and immediately, fragmented images flashed across her consciousness. Dravi researchers frantically working as alarms blared, a decision to activate the prism prematurely, the agonizing process of imprinting living memory into the crystalline matrix. She pulled her hand away, momentarily disoriented by the intensity of the impressions. "What did you see?" Adrian asked, watching her closely. "The last day," Varia replied, her voice subdued. "When they knew the Terrans would breach the central chamber, they activated the prism before it was fully prepared. The imprinting process was incomplete, which explains why it's unstable." Adrian nodded. "The memory engrams are fragmented, trying to rebuild themselves using Meridian systems." Another, more violent tremor shook the station. This time, the lights failed completely for several seconds before emergency systems engaged, bathing the corridor in pulsing red illumination. "We're running out of time," Adrian warned. "The station can't sustain this energy drain much longer." They reached a massive circular door, its surface inscribed with intricate Dravi sigils that glowed with increasing intensity as Varia approached. The door bore signs of Terran attempts to breach it, scorch marks from cutting tools, impact damage from explosives, but remained intact. Varia placed her palm against the central sigil. The door responded immediately, ancient mechanisms rumbling to life as it began to iris open. "They tried for months to get through this door," Adrian remarked. "Used every technology at their disposal. Nothing worked." "It was never meant to be forced," Varia explained, as the massive portal completed its opening sequence. "Only invited." They stepped through into the central chamber, a vast, cathedral-like space that appeared largely untouched by Terran occupation. The ceiling arched high above, embedded with crystalline formations that captured and refracted the ambient light. The floor was inscribed with concentric circles of Dravi script, telling the history of their species in elegantly flowing characters. And at the center, hovering above a cracked, crystalline pedestal, was the memory prism. It was smaller than Varia had expected, perhaps the size of her palm, but its presence dominated the chamber. Triangular in shape, its surface constantly shifted between opacity and transparency, pulsing with internal light that seemed to follow patterns too complex to discern. Fractured sigils appeared and disappeared across its facets, half in extinct Dravi script, half in what looked like encoded dream logic. Varia approached cautiously, circling the pedestal to observe the prism from all angles. Adrian remained near the entrance, watching both her and the doorway they had entered through. "It's damaged," Varia noted, studying the fracture lines visible within the crystalline structure. "But still functional," Adrian added. "More than functional. It's evolving, adapting to compensate for the damaged segments." Varia reached toward it, but Adrian's voice stopped her. "Don't touch it directly," he warned. "The last Terran who tried was found catatonic, his mind wiped clean." Varia withdrew her hand. "I need to extract it. My orders are to destroy it." Adrian finished for her. "I know, but direct removal could detonate the station. The prism is integrated with Meridian's core systems now. It's been drawing power, establishing connections to sustain itself." As if in response to his words, the prism emitted a low humming sound that resonated with something in Varia's armor. The blue-tinged plates vibrated subtly, and for a moment, visions flickered at the edge of her awareness. Fragments of battles fought long ago, faces of comrades lost to time, the weight of choices that could never be unmade. A violent tremor shook the chamber, more powerful than any previous. Crystalline shards rained from the ceiling, and the floor beneath them shifted alarmingly. "We need to leave," Adrian urged, moving toward her. "The station can't take much more of this. We'll find another way to deal with the prism." Varia hesitated, torn between her mission parameters and the increasingly apparent danger. The rational course would be to retreat, to report the situation, and request specialized equipment for safely extracting or neutralizing the prism. Before she could decide, the chamber's lighting changed dramatically. The ambient illumination faded, replaced by a concentrated beam that focused on the prism itself. The crystalline artifact's pulsing intensified, its humming rising in pitch until it became almost painful. "Varia, now!" Adrian shouted, reaching for her arm to pull her away. But it was too late. The prism flared with blinding light, and a shockwave of energy erupted from its core, forcing both of them back toward the chamber entrance. When Varia's vision cleared, she saw that the prism had risen higher above its pedestal, spinning slowly as it projected a holographic interface around itself. Meridian 12's AI had fully awakened, manifesting through the prism's connection to the station's systems. "We need to regroup," Adrian insisted, helping Varia to her feet. "The AI is integrating with the prism. We don't know what capabilities that combination might have." Reluctantly, Varia allowed him to lead her back through the iris door, which sealed behind them with ominous finality. They retreated to a small maintenance bay, several corridors away, where Adrian activated an emergency power cell to provide stable lighting. "The station's primary reactor is approaching critical levels," he explained, checking readings on a portable scanner. "Whatever the prism is doing, it's consuming power at an exponential rate." "We need to return to the chamber," Varia stated, checking her weapons. "Complete the mission." Adrian studied her face. "You still intend to destroy it?" "That was always the mission." "Even if it means destroying the last repository of unaltered Dravi history?" Adrian challenged. "The memory prism contains truths your people's enemies have tried to erase for generations. It also contains technology that could be weaponized," Varia countered. "The ability to rewrite loyalty, to alter perception of historical events, or to preserve them accurately." Adrian interrupted. "To bear witness to atrocities that those in power would prefer to forget." Another tremor shook the station. This one sustained longer than previous ones. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut in distant corridors, the sound echoing through the structure. "We're out of time for debate," Varia decided. "We return to the chamber. Now." They made their way back through corridors that were increasingly unstable. Sections of flooring had buckled, and environmental systems fluctuated wildly, freezing cold one moment, uncomfortably hot the next. The station's death throes were accelerating. When they reached the iris door again, they found it partially open, jammed in a position that allowed them to squeeze through with effort. The central chamber beyond had transformed in their absence. The memory prism now hovered at the center of a swirling vortex of energy that connected to the chamber's architecture through tendrils of light. The crystalline formations in the ceiling pulsed in rhythm with the prism, creating a network of illumination that mapped the entire room. But most striking was the sentinel form that had manifested around the prism, a towering, semi-transparent construct with fluid Dravi alloys, forming a humanoid shape nearly 3 meters tall. As they entered, the sentinel's featureless face turned toward them. When it spoke, its voice seemed to come from everywhere in the chamber at once. "Varia Frost of the Outer Colonies," it intoned, the words resonating both in the air and somehow directly in her mind. "You return to us bearing the weight of betrayal by forgetting." The sentinel took a step forward, its fluid form leaving ripples in the air. Varia instinctively gripped her Dravi blade, the weapon humming to life in response to her heightened emotions. "I have forgotten nothing," she responded, her voice steady despite the chaos surrounding them. "Lies," the sentinel accused. "You have buried your memories beneath layers of duty and obedience." You have allowed yourself to become a weapon, wielded by those who would erase our history. As the Sentinel advanced, memories converged in Varea's mind, unbidden and overwhelming. Visions of Adrian as a trusted ally during joint operations against corporate exploitation, as a confidant during rare moments of peace, then as a target she had been ordered to eliminate on Kelisar 7. Her breathing shuddered as the fragmented recollections assaulted her consciousness. "Why did you abandon him?" the Sentinel demanded, its voice taking on multiple tones, as if many were speaking through it. "Why did you choose to forget?" Varea faltered, her customary resolve wavering under the onslaught of suppressed memory. The Sentinel pulsed with red-hot energy, the temperature in the chamber rising dangerously as the floor beneath them trembled continuously now. "She didn't abandon me." Adrian's voice cut through the psychic cacophony. He stepped forward, positioning himself between Varea and the advancing Sentinel. "She made a choice to protect something greater than either of us." The Sentinel paused, its attention shifting to Adrian. "The human warrior speaks for the betrayer. Curious. Your memory patterns show you were the primary victim of her betrayal." "Memory is subjective," Adrian replied. "Even yours. Especially yours, fragmented as you are." "We are the keeper of truth," the Sentinel insisted, its form growing more agitated, ripples of energy cascading through its translucent body. "You're a damaged archive," Adrian countered. "Activated prematurely. Your imprinting incomplete. You contain vital truths. Yes, but your interpretation of them is flawed." The Sentinel surged forward suddenly, one fluid arm extending toward Adrian. "You will be silent." Varea moved without conscious thought, intercepting the Sentinel's attack with her blade. The weapon sliced through the energy construct, disrupting its form momentarily before it reconstituted itself. "Varea!" Adrian called out her name, the sound piercing through the chaos of failing systems and psychic pressure. In that moment, Varea's inner conflict peaked. She faced a critical choice: follow her orders to destroy the prism, which would likely kill Adrian in the process, or confront the buried guilt that the Sentinel had forced to the surface. The construct pulsed with increasing intensity, the chamber beginning to collapse around them as Meridian 12's structural integrity failed under the energy strain. Adrian had stepped between her and danger without hesitation, just as he had countless times during their years as comrades. His unexpected sacrifice of safety jolted something in Varea's consciousness, breaking through the barriers she had erected around certain memories. She suddenly understood that self-forgiveness was the only way forward, the only way to quell the Sentinel's fury, and possibly save them both. Varea lowered her weapon and moved toward the prism at the Sentinel's core. The construct watched her approach, but did not attack again. "I remember," she said, her voice clear despite the structural groans of the dying station. "I remember everything I tried to forget." She knelt beside the hovering prism, placing her gauntleted hand on its surface. Immediately, visions flooded her mind with far greater intensity than before. Her initiation as a Dravi warrior, swearing oaths to protect her people's heritage. Adrian's arrival as a liaison during the fragile peace negotiations. Their gradual building of trust amid suspicion. His pleas for her to question her orders when evidence emerged of corruption within her own command structure. And finally, the moment on Kelisar 7 when she had made the impossible choice to appear to carry out her assassination order while ensuring Adrian had a chance to escape, knowing that in doing so, she was severing their bond permanently. She had reported the mission complete, believing the deception necessary to protect them both. "I remember you, Adrian," she voiced aloud, her eyes meeting his across the chamber. "I remember why I left, to protect us both. My superiors suspected your influence was turning my loyalties. The mission to Kelisar was a test of my commitment. I chose to fail that test in the only way I could. The sentinel's red glow began to soften as she spoke, its aggressive posture relaxing incrementally. "I believed you dead," she continued. "I convinced myself it was necessary, that your death served a greater purpose. I buried the guilt because facing it meant acknowledging I had betrayed not just you, but myself." The prism's fractured sigils began to realign as she spoke, the chaotic patterns stabilizing into more coherent forms. The violent tremors affecting the station subsided to intermittent shudders. "The memory prism doesn't just preserve history," Adrian said quietly, approaching to stand beside her. "It responds to honesty, to the acknowledgement of truth, especially painful truth." The sentinel's form gradually dissipated, the energy returning to the prism itself, which now glowed with steady blue light rather than the frantic pulsing of before. Meridian 12 systems began to stabilize, emergency lighting replaced by normal illumination as power redistributed to essential functions. "The imprint is complete," Adrian observed. "The fragmented memories have been reconciled." Varela rose to her feet, studying the now inert prism that hovered peacefully above its pedestal. "What happens now?" "That depends on you," Adrian replied. "Your orders haven't changed. The prism is still dangerous in the wrong hands." Varela considered the artifact that had forced her to confront her buried guilt, and in doing so, had possibly saved not only their lives, but the station itself. Its purpose was preservation of truth, yet her mission demanded its destruction. "There's a third option," she said finally. "We take it with us. Ensure it doesn't fall into corporate hands, but preserve what it contains." Adrian's expression revealed surprise, then cautious hope. "That would mean defying your orders." "It wouldn't be the first time," Varela admitted. "Just the first time I've done so knowingly, rather than hiding the truth even from myself." A final tremor ran through the station, milder than those before but a reminder that Meridian 12 remained damaged beyond easy repair. "We need to leave," Adrian urged. The station stabilized, but only temporarily. Structural damage is extensive. Together, they carefully extracted the memory prism from its suspension field. Varela, using her armor's containment systems to create a secure housing for the artifact. As they did so, Meridian 12's AI presence faded, the holographic interfaces disappearing as the station returned to a dormant state. They made their way back through corridors that now remained stable, emergency systems functioning just enough to maintain life support and basic navigation. The automated defenses had deactivated, and the few remaining operational drones hung motionless in the air, their programming interrupted by the prism's removal. When they reached the docking platform, they found Adrian's small shuttle untouched, a nondescript vessel bearing no corporate or military markings. "What will you tell your superiors?" Adrian asked as they prepared for departure. "That the prism was destroyed when Meridian 12's core destabilized," Varela replied, securing the contained artifact in a shielded compartment. "Which may yet be true, if we don't leave soon." As the shuttle systems came online, Adrian offered her his hand, a human gesture of partnership she had once found alien, but had come to understand during their years working together. Varela hesitated, then clasped it firmly, signifying restored trust that neither of them had expected to find in this abandoned outpost. The shuttle lifted off smoothly, maneuvering away from Meridian 12's docking array. Through the viewport, they watched as the station's lights flashed one final time before fading to darkness, the ancient structure returning to its long slumber. "I will carry our memory forward," Varela whispered, her hand resting on the compartment containing the prism. The words were part promise, part ritual acknowledgement, recognizing that redemption and memory were both her burden and her gift. The shuttle accelerated away from the crimson moon, leaving Meridian 12's silent ruins behind. Ahead lay uncertainty. Varela had chosen a path that made her neither loyal soldier nor rebel, but something more complex. The memory prism's weight against her side was a constant reminder of truth's double edge, painful to confront, yet necessary for growth. Adrian set the coordinates for a neutral system, one of many possible safe harbors they had established during their previous partnership. The gesture acknowledged a fragile new beginning built upon the ruins of trust once shattered. As the shuttle entered FTL transit, the red dust storms of the shattered moon vanished behind them, replaced by the streaming light of hyperspace. Varela felt something she had long suppressed, a sense of possibility untethered from rigid duty or blind obedience. "What will we do with it?" she asked, nodding toward the contained prism. Adrian's expression was thoughtful. "Protect it. Study it. Perhaps, when the time is right, share what it contains with those who need to remember." "And us?" The question held layers of meaning, their complicated past, uncertain present, and possible future. "One step at a time," Adrian replied, the ghost of a smile softening his features. "We've both been given a second chance. I suggest we don't waste it overthinking." Varela found herself returning the smile, an expression that felt unfamiliar after years of disciplined stoicism. "Agreed. One step at a time." The shuttle continued its journey through the void, carrying two warriors who had once been enemies, then allies, then adversaries again, and now something undefined but precious in its fragility. Between them rested an artifact of impossible truth, a crystalline witness to history that refused to be forgotten. And in that moment of uncertain possibility, Varela Frost, who had torn through 5 men without blinking, but frozen at the sound of her name, chose to remember, to acknowledge, and to move forward. The memory prism pulsed once in its containment field, as if in agreement, before settling into dormant stillness, waiting, like truth itself, for the right moment to illuminate the darkness once more.